Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you all for this interesting and exciting concept, bilateral and synergistic opportunities between Qatar and India. What a combination of speakers we have aligned today. I'll be introducing one by one to you over the course of our conversation. What's happening in the world is extraordinary. We live in a world which is going through huge transformation. These are changes and challenges, which we call it as transformation in substance. Changing face of the world in terms of economic governance, social governance, environment governance, and human governance in terms of substance and substantive compliance. We already had an impact over 20 million people globally on account of COVID pandemic, and we have lost nearly 750,000 people world over. Extraordinary set of challenges in terms of business continuity. We are moving from disaster recovery to business continuity. The economists, the politicians, technocrats, bankers are all coming together to find prudent measures in terms of fiscal and monetary prudence to see whether we can sustain the economic governance. There are measures taken across the globe, over 25 trillion in terms of overall liquidity management. Fiscal and monetary measures have been taken. Interest rates have been lowered, so the debt servicing capacity of the borrower is improving. What has happened in 2008 was confined to financial sector. The liquidity crisis was moving into a funding crisis, funding to solvency and sovereigns. But what we are witnessing now is extraordinary. It's not confined to one single sector. It defied all the logics, whether developing economy or developed economy. Everyone is under threat. International Monetary Fund in the recent forecast have predicted in aggregate term, global contraction is not less than 4.9%. Advanced economies in aggregate terms, again, will be grossly underperforming to the tune of 8% contraction. Developing economies, emerging markets, will be contracting to the tune of 3%. Nobody is an exception. It has defied all the logics, as I said, caste, creed, gender, developed or developing economies. We are in true transformation to protect this humanity, to make sure human endeavors are sustaining its meritocracy. We create a better world, better citizenship to this world. That's the mode we are in. These challenges are real. The transformations and the initiatives to make sure we eliminate extreme poverty, we bring in gender equality, we bring in universal health care, we focus on universal education irrespective of the disruptions, and again, creating lesser carbon emission, creating a carbon neutral world, creating a green economy to make sure we create a fine mix of energy to see carbon emission is lowered. We factor even environment into the trading for reducing the carbon emissions. To align and make sure we create a sustainable world, we need to build partnership. This global partnership has to happen so that humanity is not getting indignity. The future generation has to be well off than the present. That's the focus. With this pursuit, the whole world today is in the crossroad at a defining moment. Every country in the world is recognizing these challenges, and they've taken prudent measures. America has pumped trillions of dollars in terms of fiscal and monetary prudence, and they kept the interest rate lowered. Federal Reserve has made it very clear they're not even thinking of the interest rate. Possibly there could be negative interest rate. European Central Bank has done the same. Bank of England, again, Bank of Japan, Indian Reserve Bank or Reserve Bank of Australia, every technocrats have realized monetary and fiscal alignment has to come. And that's what we are engaged in. In the midst, how do we build this partnership? How do we synergize the trade, investment, banking, and finance to see we restore normalcy in the shortest possible time? That's what the commitment we all are making. With this purpose in mind, we are exploring the possibilities of synergistic opportunities between countries. India is a country of great substance. In a few days' time, we are going to celebrate the 74th anniversary of the Indian independence, a country which is the largest in terms of democracy, a country of great heritage, culture, civilization. Indians are transcending borders. Indian culture has transcended borders, whether it is literature or cinemas or every effort in terms of our cultural transcendations is today telling India is globalizing in true form and substance. A country which was targeting a 5 trillion by 2025 is in the crossroad on account of this COVID. Definitely, we need to look at objectively and to see how do we rebuild post-COVID. How do we make sure our economic sustenance is in prospects for better union. We also have to recognize the challenges are substantive in terms of global governance. India is redefining it in its brand equity. In terms of global realignment, in terms of foreign policy makeup, whether India stands a chance to use this challenge and convert this into an opportunity. We have to look at objectively. With this perspective in mind, we have combined prolific combination of speakers who are professionals in their own respects in pursuit of their excellence. We are bringing together in this webinar an excellent line of speakers. Qatar, within the country we operate from, is a huge transformation story since 1995. Political transformation, social transformation, and economic transformation. A country which was just producing $8 billion in 1995, today is costing nearly $200 billion. Qatar has got huge reserves in terms of substance. While the GDP is nearly $200 billion, the external investments and the country's cash reserves and the gold put together double of the GDP, nearly $380 to $400 billion. That's the kind of financial stability we have. How do we promote the bilateral values between Qatar and India? How do we see the opportunities? Qatar is liberalizing its market space. And we have couple of years before, we have gone through an extraordinary set of blockade that has given a bigger opportunity for us to be self-sustaining its meritocracy. We have our own seaport, airport, and again, we are liberalizing in terms of policy framework, public-private partnership, investment policies have been redefined, free economic zones have been set in, and again, we are making sure competitive offerings in terms of substance is happening for every single community. There's a huge amount of synergistic measures we can resolve during this deliberation. And that's the very purpose of today's session. With this perspective in mind, we have a fine combination of speakers. Now, we have an excellent, experienced minister of par excellence. Since 1996, Honorable Mr. Suresh Prabhu, my personal friend. In fact, to tell you the personal story, in 1982-83, I was trying to work in his firm in Ballard Estate in Mumbai. He advised me, he says, your line of thinking, you have to go out of the country and make sure you set in your vision correct and ensure you perform well. Since then, our continuing friendship is a testament for us to see through. Every single occasion, he has been quite supportive of my mission and the country's vision. He was the one who inaugurated our Indian operation way back in 2015 April. Subsequently, whenever we requested, he has always been there as a form of great support. 2016, he was there in our India-Qatar meet, and again, continuing support for us in terms of the overall local, our network. India has produced one of the finest foreign secretary, excellent diplomat of par excellence. And he's not new to Qatar. Qataris knows him very well. Indians living in Qatar, like me, knows His Excellency Ranjan Mathai, a diplomat with a difference. He's the one who pioneered many projects, right from Petronet LNG to commence in 2004. Subsequently, he has been in touch with the decision makers in this country, and he has been a frequent visitor to Qatar as well. He's here to add value in terms of foreign policy makeups. What sort of changes and challenges India is going to go through with the changing dynamics in the world. Big or small, the business has to survive. The small and medium-sized entrepreneurs have to come to terms. Huge amount of sustainability value chain we can create by small and medium-sized entrepreneurship. That's a backbone for India. That's a backbone for developing countries. With this perspective, we also assemble today a fine speaker, the founding member of the SME Chamber of India. Doha Bank and SME Chamber of India signed an agreement in 2010 and 11. We are working together to promote the bilateral opportunities for Indian small and medium-sized entrepreneurs in the Gulf. As you know, Doha Bank has got branches across the Gulf. In addition to India, 3 branches we have in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, and Qatar. We are building this relationship in synergistic terms and providing opportunities for Indian small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. And again, investment partnership, joint ventures, we are exploring the possibilities time and again. With this perspective, I have invited Mr. Chandrakant Solanki to be part of this webinar as well. Atul Punch is a great businessman, a good entrepreneur, first-generation entrepreneur, shown his professional mettle across the globe, over 30 countries. He has been supportive of the infrastructure creation in Qatar as well. And his experience in the Gulf and India is going to be a great knowledge source for us to interpret and what sort of impact post-COVID we will be having, what sort of changing dynamics in terms of construction industry, thanks to his participation as well. With this, we have a fine opportunity to bring in first time our new ambassador to Qatar from India, His Excellency Dr. Deepak Mittal. He's just presented his credentials today morning. It's our privilege to have him as well. So this is the line of speakers. This is the purpose of the session, and I'm going to coordinate and make sure we produce value advantage to the listeners. Already we have 28 countries enrolled, Indians from Japan to Canada. They're all watching this session. We have 750 direct enrollment through Zoom, and we have over 6,000 Facebook entry already. And that's the kind of, spectators we are going to witness their intelligent inputs. With this prime thoughts, let me have the pleasure and privilege to welcome our Indian ambassador to Qatar, His Excellency, Dr. Deepak Mittal. Your Excellency, we are looking forward to hear your maiden speech in Qatar. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sitaraman. It's a pleasure and privilege to join today at this webinar. And I think for me, it's really a privilege to be present among a galaxy of such accomplished and eminent panel. Honorable Minister, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, former Foreign Secretary, Shri Ranjan Mathai ji, Chandrakant ji, Mr. Atul Ponch ji. It's a especially very special day for me, as this becomes my kind of a first assignment or first event soon after having presented credentials today morning to His Highness the Amir in Qatar. And really becomes very timely, because when I was with His Highness, one thing he did focus and did mention was about trade and investment opportunities and need to work on this. His message was very loud and clear that even during these times, given the close relations between our two countries, this is the area which has what I could sense as kind of not taken to its full potential, especially the investment part of it. And he said that Qatar would like to partner with India in these investment opportunities, including from Qatar to India too. In that context, this event, this webinar, certainly would provide a platform to come up with the ideas of opportunities where we can work together. And for me personally, it is a very good beginning for my tenure to be able to understand it from my eminent speakers on this panel. Dr. Sitaraman, you have very nicely laid out the recent scenario where a lot of uncertainty and the challenges posed by the recent pandemic. But at the same time, the opportunities it also creates. Well, for India, as you know, we have been during these difficult times. We have witnessed that there are a lot of positive developments as a preferred, in a certain sense, a preferred destination by the global companies to even come to India at this time. To give the example of Google announcement for a $10 billion investment, others of Walmart, Foxconn, Facebook, and many other in billions of dollars wanting commitments which have gone in. Clearly, as you mentioned, we are today as a vibrant economy. We are very well on track to be a $5 trillion economy by 2024-25. And there is, in that regard, there is a consistent approach, a policy adopted by the government in India of constant reforms, which has yielded results even in terms of ratings, if I may say, of ease of doing business, where we are, where we were, say, 5 years ago and where we are today. And I must say that Minister Shri Suresh Prabhuji has been himself pioneer and instrumental in taking those steps and leading the country in that direction. Dr. Sitaraman, you mentioned about the Qatar efforts, especially after the blockade in 2017, about self-sustaining. I think that has kind of a policy which, if we look at India, our Prime Minister's call for Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, I think there is a complementarity and synergy in that. It is again not exclusivity, but it is also about working together with our global partners, and where India desires to be an important part and partner in a global supply chain as a to work in a manner so as not to disrupt these global supply chains also. And this was also manifest in our efforts when it came to the healthcare sector, when it came to the need for medicines of hydroxychloroquine, or how we have been able to ramp up our efforts in PPE kits or ventilators, and how we have now opened up even to be a supplier in that for the global requirements, exports having started. Clearly, it's it shows one kind of an opportunities from a pandemic is an opportunity in the healthcare sector. The new normals of the manner in which we are meeting today in terms of webinars, the online, which has become a new normal for all of us in all over the world. It has also kind of hastened this the global village and the globalization and more integration actually in a manner where we have got used to interacting, beyond, waiting for a physical travel, and to be able to develop understandings and faster decision making and look at opportunities available around the globe. This creates opportunities in terms of information technology sector at the same time. It adds to the education sector. Now we have the online education platforms which are in use. It has also kind of given impetus to the startup kind of an innovation startups out there, and we can see it happening in India in a big manner. We spoke about Chandrakantji is here from the SME sector. In India there is a big emphasis on the SME sector as a part of being part of the global supply chain. So the efforts which you mentioned about Doha Bank having agreement with SME sector and promoting that, I think I'm sure we'll get to hear a lot from Chandrakantji on that. And that is something certainly has a lot of potential to focus upon. One can go on and on, and but I think I would like to say thank you once again to both Doha Bank and CII for taking this initiative to bring such eminent panel together, and for giving me the opportunity to be part of this very early in my tenure, which should certainly help me in the right direction for me to follow in strengthening India-Qatar relation, especially in the trade, investment, economic opportunities out there. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Deepak Mittal. You are right. The FDI last year itself is over 50 billion. And this fiscal, again, we have reassurance over 40 billion already kind of lined up from Facebook to Google, Reliance Jio. They're all going to invest. That's a commitment they have already demonstrated. India's foreign exchange reserves also standing tall now, over $520 billion. So it's a good ground to start with. But what is ahead of us? Who knows better than His Excellency Mr. Suresh Prabhu, who is the G7, G20 Sherpa, extraordinary minister, 1996 onwards, minister, scored in every form and substance. Every financial media has rated him as one of the best performing ministers, and when he was handling commerce or railways, or when he was water or power in Vajpayee government, he was always demonstrating very high caliber presentation. What is the rebuilding opportunity? What is ahead of us in terms of challenges? How do we rebuild? How do we make sure this crisis is converted into an opportunity? Is 2025, 5 trillion is realistic, or what will be the change in the goalpost? Let me request Mr. Suresh Prabhuji.
So you have to unmute yourself, sir. So thank you very much. And for me, at least, it looks like that this is like a get together of my very dear friends. As Dr. Sitaraman was saying, he's my friend for last 40 years. Deepak, now Ambassador Deepak Mittal is also my very good friend. And in fact, that shows how much India considers these bilateral relationships importance, because Prime Minister sent one of the top diplomats to Qatar. A very proven capability, and I am very sure during his tenure will do very well. Dr. Rajan Mathai, my very dear good old friend, who has served with great distinction as a foreign secretary. He was High Commissioner to UK, is very fine diplomat, and again, nice to meet him at least virtually. Last time we met just before the pandemic was in a lounge in Mumbai. So I think only these are the places where we can meet now like this only. Atul, again, very dear friend. We worked together in many even track to dialogues with industry, and he participating. We used to travel together. And Mr. Chandrakant Salunke, again, we used to work together in even larger forum, like World Congress for Marathi Entrepreneurs. So I'm very happy that I'm meeting all of you at the same time. And Ambassador, I want to tell you a very interesting anecdote. That I was talking to my dear friend Dr. Sitaraman and said, why not we organize an event like this? But we didn't realize that you'll be taking over on the same day. So imagine the stars are coming together, aligning at the right time. And I'm very happy, Ambassador, that you are taking over today on a day when we are actually laying down the agenda for future. And I'm very confident of your capability, having known you personally for so long, that you'll do extremely well, and all the best to you, and we'll all work together. Actually, we are really passing through some very difficult times. Let us accept the reality. Today, UK has just announced their quarterly results, and this is the worst contraction for any major economy of the world. A few days earlier, USA announced the results, and their contraction for that particular period was 32.9%, almost one third. And it is definitely going to be that the world economy will contract this year, definitely. And also, the major economies of the world will also contract. So it's difficult times. When the world economy contracts, everybody suffers. And when the major economies also contract, of course, that will lead to the world contracting because they are the major economies. We'll have a challenging times for the countries all over. And this is not the only thing that is troubling. When in such difficult times, the countries should come together and try to find out how to work together, there seems to be a very little movement in that direction. In fact, there is a movement in other direction. That World Trade Organization, multilateral agencies are under threat. So which will have again a very negative consequence on the growth prospect of the world. So we are in a difficult times. How do you navigate? On one hand, we should work together, particularly Qatar, India, to revitalize the global trading system. Make sure that WTO becomes more functional, more effective. Multilateral agencies play more active role. While we do this, and that's what India is doing. In fact, I was just remembering, its Commerce Industry Minister had organized two mini-ministerial. One was attended by 57 countries. Foreign Secretary will tell you that 57 countries for a mini-ministerial is never heard of. They came, and our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji met the heads of the delegation, and we wanted to tell them that while the rest of the world is not thinking about it, let's at least few of us try to work together. And I chaired both the mini-ministerial to revitalize WTO. But while we do this, we are working on it, we must also explore possibilities of bilateral relationship. One track is multilateral, which we must pursue together. But even bilateral relationship will play a very key role. Because both Qatar and India both are going to suffer because of multilateralism not functioning, but also because the global economy contracting. Look at oil prices. They touch unimaginable low levels. Obviously, the gas won't lag behind. And there was a time when Qatar was the major player in the gas market of the world, and even it is today. We have seen recently, Australia started developing gas in the Mediterranean. The new gas was found. In other parts of the world, the gas discoveries are taking place. US has become a major gas player, shale gas. And therefore, in that context, India, I would say unfortunately, we don't have too much of gas, but we need gas. So one area of cooperation is always was there, but now need to be refocused is how do you get gas into India, LNG. Of course, there is no natural gas can come because there is no pipeline, but that is something which we can explore in a manner that benefits both the countries. We must negotiate a price in such a way that India's gas requirement can be met without affecting too much the coffers of the Kingdom of Qatar. While we do this, we have a great potential because together then we can reduce the greenhouse gas emission. India is already working on a very ambitious program. Prime Minister Modi has started 100,000 megawatts of solar, 75,000 megawatts of wind. But still, gas will be a cleaner fuel as compared to coal. And our thermal capacity, which is almost 2/3, if you can add more gas into it and reduce the coal consumption, it can actually benefit. And so would Qatar, because I was saying that there are so many other countries which are now developing their own gas resource. And because they're doing that, the demand for gas only from Qatar will be limited. And because of the close proximity geographically, we can be the good market for that. So we need to negotiate a good price and can work on that. Qatar, as I said, is also going to suffer because of the global slowdown, plus this pressure on the gas market of the world. India is also going to suffer because we have a large number of people working in Qatar. And because of construction slowdown, hopefully not, in Qatar at least, some of our workers will become redundant and that will affect our remittances. Because India is the single largest destination for remittances in the world. We get almost now, we used to get at least, now it will slow down considerably, $85 billion, almost close to that. And now today, we are going to have a problem because our remittances will go down as well as the people who are working there will come back, if not from Qatar, at the rest of the Gulf and the Middle East. So we'll have to provide them employment. So if we can work and can buy more gas and Qatar can reinvest that into some more projects, our people also get jobs there. Remittances will not be affected. So it will be a win-win for Qatar as well as India. Secondly, which Ambassador Mittal just mentioned very articulately and very well, in these most difficult times, India got $20 billion of FDI. Of course, thanks to Mr. Mukesh Ambani's entrepreneurship. Reliance Industries was the single largest recipient of that. But investment will play a key role into this global economy. And particularly for a country like Qatar, which is dependent on selling gas, building reserves, but those reserves, if not invested, they will not get the return that they need. And India is the most potential market for investment. As you can clearly see, the companies that Ambassador Deepak Mittalji mentioned are all betting on India as well, because they know that this is the market which is going to explode in terms of digital economy. And therefore, if the likes of Facebook and Google and all of them, they feel that India is a growing market, you can say it is vetted already, that a market is definitely going to explode in future. So for Qatar, investment opportunities in India as compared to other geographies will be far, far better, because this is a market which is going to give good returns and which is yet to be fully exploited. So I think that's another area we must work together. There's another interesting area about derivative of investment. When we are talking about investment, I can put more into that. See, one area when you make investment, you can invest into particular, say, retail business or digital business or something else. But as has been evidence recently, that India's ability to produce world-class pharmaceutical is phenomenal. And whether we like it or not, the focus is back on public health, which we had ignored for decades as a world community. We thought it is the private health which matters. In fact, the most developed countries, OECD countries, they felt this is none of the state business, let the private people manage. Of course, NHS is a very honorable exception. It's a UK, and I'm sure Secretary Mathai will tell us more about that, not today, but he knows it better. But public health will be a refocus item. And in that, you cannot deal with health unless you have medication. And therefore, there's an opportunity that Qatar and India together can invest into new molecules development, new drug delivery system, in which the returns will not be just normal return of 5-6% or even less than 2% or less than 1% that you will get in treasury bills of United States, where most of the countries go and invest money. US treasury bill, in fact, the rate of interest has gone to almost zero. And therefore, you can have an opportunity of investment of a different, therefore I'm saying a derivative kind of investment into knowledge-based businesses of India, wherein healthcare business, particularly in areas of pharmaceutical, can be a game changer. And we must look into that very seriously. Other aspect, well, I've talked about destination from Qatar to India. From India to Qatar, we can actually take care of Qatar's growing need of food security. As India's energy security is important, the food security of Gulf is far more important. And in fact, this has reinforced the need for urgency into this direction. As Commerce Industry Minister, I had made India's first ever agro export policy. In that, we have clearly mentioned the potential of exporting to the closer to India's countries like Qatar, in which we can actually put money together into the entire supply chain of this, including we can create a hub in Qatar, so that like a strategic reserve for oil that we do it in India, we can have a strategic reserve of food in Qatar, wherein meat, dairy products, marine products, agriculture products, horticulture products, all of that, poultry, all of that can go and be exported to Qatar, but also can be created a critical strategic reserve for that. So as a security, when you talk about strategic food security, if you have reserves in your own territory, you are taken care of. And nowadays, you never know what will happen in terms of supply disruption. We could never imagine. Nobody could even anticipate that this can ever happen like this. But today it has happened. So just imagine, once bitten, twice shy. So we should now be careful about possibility of this recurring again. So therefore, this kind of effort will also be greatly necessary, and we can work on that. Then, of course, India's infrastructure, which will be requiring investment, which we can look into that together. And I think there are many opportunities we have seen, but now we have a striker in form of Ambassador Deepak Mittal, because Qatar will be hosting the FIFA. In that, unless you score a goal, you never win the match. And to score a goal, you need a striker who can actually put the ball into the net properly, then it gets a score that you need. So these opportunities are there, but now we need to put that ball into the net and get those goals achieved. So I think it's a good time that we can be the defender to make sure that we defend, but striker is also necessary. And that is what ambassador will play that key role into making it happen. The ecosystem is already there, and thanks to Dr. Sitaraman, who has become an icon of financial services and banking in Qatar. He has been already articulating the various important relevant issues related to this sector to global and addressing the global audience. So I think this ecosystem is already there to benefit from this. Whenever I gone to Qatar, I always met friends and I have seen a huge goodwill towards India. I remember when the Emir, His Highness, visited India. I was there for the banquet at Rashtrapati Bhavan, and I know his real involvement into this bilateral relationship. And I know Prime Minister Modi's priority to engage with this region and particularly a country like Qatar. So I think that everything is ripe. We are the best. We have put the best foot forward by sending the most competent officer to represent India there. So I think we now need to capitalize on it and, as I said, score a goal now. We should not wait anymore on the sidelines and just watch the ball going from here to there, but put it at the right place. And I think this is what is a good time. This particular program, as I said, was organized because I discussed with my dear friend Dr. Sitaraman and said, why not we do it together? And I requested NCI also to anchor it. So I think we really look forward to working with all of you. Please assured of one thing, that we as India, as Indians, will be trying to do everything possible to promote this relationship and to make sure that both countries benefit. This is very important for any bilateral relationship. We can never say that India only should benefit at the expense of Qatar. No. Qatar must benefit equally. At the same time, we'll benefit. So let's find out. I mentioned few, but there are many more which we can actually put it on table as potential areas of cooperation which can benefit both the countries equally, and we can benefit and take this relationship forward. So thank you very much. Once again, I look forward to this.
Absolutely fine words of wisdom, Sureshji. You summed it up so well. It's food security is an opportunity. Energy mix. India is now hardly 6% is LNG and 87% still coal and fossil fuels. So energy efficient, environment friendly is LNG. And there's, in fact, the oil and gas minister from Qatar visited in January this year. There are a lot of bilateral opportunities. I'm sure the new ambassador can look at objectively and move forward. And you touched on the infrastructure. We need trillions of dollars. National Infrastructure Fund is one thing which there was an agreement to invest from Qatar. Perhaps, I'm sure ambassador will move forward to see whether we can mobilize some additional funds through it. Plenty of opportunities, synergize. We will work together and see how best we can scale it up. And quite a few questions. I'm not going to give all these questions now for want of time, but I will, if time permits, later I will be asking Sureshji. Let me move on to the next speaker, Mr. Atul Punch, Chairman, CII National Committee on Construction and Chairman of Punchline as well. A wonderful businessman, as I said earlier. He has relevant experience in the Gulf and especially Qatar. He knows well. What is his perspective in building this partnership between Qatar and India? Over to you, Atul.
Thank you, Dr. Sitaraman. It's a pleasure meeting you again. We've known you for a long, long time, as I have most of the panelists. I hope to get to know His Excellency Dr. Mittal also sooner than later. So I think the opportunities in terms of the India-Qatar relationship are many. There are some that are made in heaven, effectively. And it's really up to the respective parties on both sides to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm going to focus my direction more towards the construction and infrastructure sector. You know, as we all know that the construction industry accounts for about 40 to 50% of the total capital spent in India. India is a soak pit for infrastructure investment. And no matter how many years we go on, given the size of our country, given the size of the population, given the state of the current infrastructure, we will be on the buy side for a very, very long time. We have a young and growing population. I think our median age is currently running at about 26 and a half years. And the urban population is going to grow to about 50% of the overall population by 2050, which tells you about the extent of migration that is going to happen from rural to urban India. And that itself is going to result in a huge demand for housing, all the urban construction that is required to absorb this population. Other than, of course, the standard construction of roads, bridges, hotels, resorts, there are many, many other areas of infrastructure that would require a large scale of investment. The real estate side is a huge opportunity. And I dare say that so far, most of the friends from the Gulf tend to look at India as a destination for high-end real estate development. Now, that high-end real estate development is at best a very limited market and is prone to a lot of cycles. Whereas the affordable housing element of real estate is a massive opportunity, and that really needs to be focused on as far as investment is concerned from the Qatari end, when we really look at investment opportunities within India. The government has unveiled 102 lakh crores. I'm not too sure how much that translates into dollars, but it is a very, very large infrastructure pipeline, which the government has really laid out line by line, project by project, state by state, city by city, district by district. So it is really a detailed proposal, and that is another document that is available to all people concerned to really see as to where they would like to potentially invest or partner with companies that are investing. Options are available. Or, of course, there is the standard way of operating through an infrastructure fund like the NIIF, etc., which Dr. Sitaraman referred to. What I referred to when I said it's a marriage that could be made in heaven, when you look at Qatar, Qatar has the problem of a limited population. The population by global standards is very, very, very low. The per capita is exponentially high. It's probably the highest, if not the highest, among the top 2 or 3 globally. And therein lies the real contradiction. So India can really absorb a lot of the capital that is available for allocation from Qatar in almost any sector that any Qatari investor would want to look at. And I think that synergy is something that we need to really look at and see as to how we can convert that into a real relationship. I already talked to you offline, Dr. Sitaraman, about the opportunity for the banking sector, that we do know that the Indian banking sector is requiring a lot of investment. A lot of capital will be required. A lot of the private banks have already raised large amounts of capital in the last 2-3 days. This is a trend that I expect is going to continue, is also going to travel on towards the public sector banks. The gap required, as I mentioned, for the 110 lakh crores worth of infrastructure pipeline will require about 17 to 20 lakh crores worth of guarantees alone for the construction companies that are going to be executing these projects. The Indian system right now does not have the capacity to provide those. So how you can see what is the advantage that you can take over there is really for you to evaluate and see. But there is a significant opportunity. Another regular destination that most Indians would go to for investment in the earlier days, pre-COVID days, was China. With the strain that we have developing on our borders with China and a lot of the other trade barriers that have kind of kicked in, I think there is another huge opportunity for looking at places which Indian entrepreneurs would look to Chinese investment. We should now find a way to direct them to Qatar as their destination where they can go to actually find a whole solution or part of their solution to their investment requirements in India. So I think that is going to be an interesting channel to open up. For the Indian companies in the Qatari construction market, the Qatari construction market is fairly mature. They have the best-in-class contractors in the world that go there. So it is something that we have to make sure that we are able to provide best-in-class services. It is not just enough to supply labor or supply manpower to those projects. We have to look to see as to how we can really take advantage of the overall project opportunity by itself in total. We have had the good fortune of working on some significant projects in Qatar. I think we've done over our experience in Qatar, probably about $3.5 to $4 billion worth of work in the country. We've had mostly good experiences. Dr. Sitaraman is aware fully of some of the challenges that we had to face, but I think with the support from friends, we managed to overcome them. The FIFA World Cup, of course, as Dr. Prabhu mentioned, is a very good opportunity to showcase Qatar as not just being a backwater, but as being a very developed country with the best-in-class facilities in terms of their hospitality, in terms of their stadia, in terms of everything else that they have to offer. The total number of projects in Qatar right now are expected to be about $85 billion in various stages of tendering. And I think the only concern, which I'm sure Mr. Mathai will address in more detail, is the local stresses in terms of relationship with neighbors as a result of the blockade that was established a few years ago. But Qatar very smartly and very innovatively managed to overcome the impact of that blockade. And I think they've done a great job in becoming self-sustaining to a large extent. How we can plug into that opportunity as a country, whether it's food security, as Mr. Prabhu mentioned, or it is other partnerships on the logistics side, using Qatar as a trade point, using the beautiful network that Qatar Airways has built up, particularly on the cargo side also. They have a huge facility available now. So it could really become like a port for transshipment of air cargo for the whole region, including Central Asia, with its extensive fleet network and a very efficient management. So I think the opportunities are robust on both ends of the spectrum. It's really up to people on both sides to take advantage of them. From my point of view, the infrastructure investment is huge. It is quite unparalleled and it is urgent. I think most importantly, it is something that is required to be done here and now. It is not something to be parked off for another time. It is something that is required now. So I think with that, Dr. Sitaraman, with your permission, I think I've covered what I was asked to. And I think we'll hand it back to you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Atul. In fact, I've already received 9 questions for you. I mean, 6 questions for you. For Suresh Ji, I received 9 questions. This is a moving numbers as such. Now for you, let me quickly, briefly, you can answer. What policies can redefine post-COVID construction sector to stimulate growth? Is one question, perhaps, is worth answering, Atul.
Yeah, I think the biggest policy change that we can have in India is to really have FIDIC-based contracts. Right now, I think one of the problems in India is that every client has its own set of contracts, which are loosely modeled on whatever the PWD, as the original fountainhead of all legal issues, provided. So we need to really reestablish the contracting regime to be more in line with the international standards, where risk is shared between client and contractor, and the contractor is not at the receiving end on a 24/7 basis. That is something that we are working with the government on to get. The other one, which has been dispute resolution, where we find that there's been a very long time to solve your disputes in India, has in some parts had a great measure of success, in other parts a bit slower. But I think the fact that the cabinet has taken a decision to, in an arbitration award, if it is being contested by a client, 70% of the money can be released to the contractor against a bank guarantee. So that has now been clarified as to how it will operate. So the Niti Aayog and CII are working very closely together to clear that up in more detail. So I think these are the 2 major policy changes, which is contracts, and second is dispute resolution.
Right on the spot, because the next question was about to ask you, answer it. It says, dispute resolution has been a very, very long story. Is it worth engaging in construction sector which takes so long? That's the question which you answered right. We have to come to terms with all this digital advantage. If we can put the commercial codes on the digital space, and commercial disputes can be resolved in no time, especially on the construction side. And that's the key, I think. What do you think?
Dr. Really, what happened is I think a lot of people have missed this particular point. The Arbitration Act was amended to say that arbitrators can only take 3 arbitrations at one time. They have to finish the arbitration in a predetermined period. The arbitrator's fees are fixed. Okay, so there's a major change that happened about 2 or 3 years ago, okay, as a result of our friend Mr. Arun Jaitley pushing it. That actually happened. The problem was that the clients would then appeal that arbitration award. So arbitration awards happen in a time-bound period now, okay, but the awards were being challenged. So we went back to the government and said that our liquidity issues are not being addressed. They have sorted that out by saying, okay, a large percentage of your arbitration award can be received by you against a bank guarantee. in the 1% or less than 1% chance that the client succeeds in his appeal, okay, which statistically is under 1%. So you can at least achieve bulk of your money is available to you. And what is at risk is really that 20-25%. So that has been a significant change in the whole dispute resolution mechanism. NHAI has got another dispute resolution mechanism that they've established, which is proving to be quite effective as well. So clients in India, particularly the PSUs, are also seeing that the longevity of their favorite contractors was at risk if they did not resolve that. So that is being addressed.
Brilliant. Good. A lot of questions. I'm going to pass it on to, in the interest of time, to the next speaker now. Mr. Chandrakant, 30% of the GDP come from SME. Now we have, in terms of employment, you're a major contributor. SME plays a big role in rural employment, urban as well, and extraordinary set of challenges post-COVID. And Qatar, of course. Qatar has got a very special program to support SMEs, even during this crisis time. They have opened up with the public-private partnership. Banks have been asked to give full support for liquidity. And we have free rentals and, again, customs duty and other taxes. So the grace period has been extended even up to 3 years in terms of certain specific loans called the Qatar development programs. So how do we synergize? How do we help the Indian SMEs to come to the Gulf? There are free zones now. Tax is fixed at a flat rate. How do we promote the bilateral opportunities? Where do you see the alliance coming through?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sitaramanji, for inviting me to share my thoughts. Especially, greetings to you, because you are a visionary speaker, a global speaker, and most importantly, you are a mentor for entrepreneurs and SMEs. Similarly, Dr. Ranjan Mathai, I have interacted with him when you are in service. So, and we took a lot of guidance from you. And most importantly, our dearest friend and respected Rajya Sabha member and ex-minister Suresh Prabhuji, who is always supporting to industry SMEs to grow more. And of course, congratulations to His Excellency Dr. Deepak Mittalji for taking a charge and taking a rather challenging charge and assignment now during this pandemic, and to build bridge between Qatar and India. That is the most important work. And Atulji himself is doing a lot of activities for building a lot of bridges, constructions, and many energy projects and different engineering projects for enhancement of the industrial as well as the other sectors. First of all, let me give you the insight of our chamber. SME Chamber of India is one of the largest membership organization which is working for us 27 years. We are supporting more than 5 lakh SMEs, serving SMEs and supporting them and guiding them to survive in this competitive era. So these are the main activities, but particularly we support SMEs for go global, setting up businesses in various parts of the world, connectivity for the joint venture, technology transfer, contract manufacturing. And of course, Doha Bank is supporting to get more funding to our SME members. Those are working in India. Also, I represent the Federation of Indian SME Associations, which is leading more than 350 SME associations from all over India, not only for the metro cities, but the rural area also, on the smaller cities, because we want to connect SMEs. We want to connect the SMEs to grow more. And this is the right time. Let me share one thing. Honorable Prime Minister of India invited me 27 December to share my views and to suggest government what to be done for SME sector. I'm surprised to note that even all of you will be surprised. He has given 30 minutes time, but he extended for 3 hours. He took whole scenario, understand the whole scenario of the Indian industries and SMEs. So understanding the SMEs issues and problems, then he realized that what to be done for SMEs. And as you said, that 3 lakh crore, the hand-holding support provided by government, but the first announced for the SME sector. That means Indian government is very much keen and interested and serious for the development of SME sector. So coming to the point about how we can build the bridge between India and Qatar. Your Excellency, Mr. Mittal, you have to play very important role to replace the Chinese product for India's product. We have to do a lot of the development business in Qatar. I know the lot of Indian industries are looking for enter in Qatar segment to set up business, to export, to set up the collaboration with the local companies, and most importantly, they are identifying the emerging market through Qatar and other nearby countries also. So, Your Excellency, you have to play a very important role. And therefore, of course, Doha Bank, we have a collaboration, and Dr. Sitaraman is 100% always available to support SMEs. And he himself, every day, every time, whenever he speaks, he said, bring whatever you have, issues, problems, and business opportunity. I am there as a Doha Bank, and personally as a CEO of the bank will be providing the handhold. Friends, those are listening, those are viewers for the today. This is the right time for to explore more business opportunity for particularly the SME sector. Because each and every country in the world now, they are not happy with the China. China is dumping product, but Indian product are very, very important. Indian product are invented now very well. I have a lot of SMEs, Dr. Mittal, they are knocking the door of the various countries. And we want to develop, we want to support more SMEs for export promotion. Strategic alliance with the local companies, identifying the good importers, identifying the companies those are supporting, providing support services, particularly for the SME sector. So I would like to suggest the one thing, how we can build a bridge between India and Qatar with the help of Doha Bank, because without fuel, financial fuel, we cannot run business. And Doha Bank is always keen to support Indian SMEs. And as a facilitator, as Suresh Prabhuji said, that you are the very competent person and the striker. I can say you can play a very, very important role for pushing SME ball into Qatar market. So this is right time to play football before the FIFA kick their ball. So this is the right time, and it will take not much time. Next 2 months time we can do. And I will be very happy through our SME Chamber of India to connect more the Qatari company. And you can give us assignment. These are the sector, these are the segments we want to develop connectivity. I can identify. We are working very closely with the Minister of MSME, Minister of Commerce and Industry, another current Commerce Minister, Sri Piyush Goyal is very, very cooperative, supportive. He is always available to support us. Even Sri Jaishankarji is always supporting us for the Go Global. Even I want to suggest you very, very interesting thing, and Dr. Sitaraman, you can also play in this important role. Mittal Saab, can you set up one page in the embassy website, support services for Indian SMEs, those are looking to enter in Doha market, or Qatar market? What are the business opportunity? What are the export opportunity available? And how the strategic partnership they can develop? Somehow, the specific segment for the SME sector. Rather, I had an interaction with Mr. Kumar earlier, but somehow I don't know whether it is implemented or not. But this is the right time. Rather, not only in Qatar, I am pursuing all over the world. Every Indian embassy should create one page for the SME sector. What is the business, investment, and bilateral trade opportunity? Because Indian company, we should not say that India is or Indian company should stay only in India. They should go global. They should acquire the businesses. They should set up businesses. They should start manufacturing. Now after this pandemic, so many companies have closed down because of the I know the more and more in the Poland and as well other countries. The old people, they started closing the business, and this is the right time in this pandemic to explore new business opportunity. And I'm sure that Dr. Sitaraman, Mittal Saab, special guidance for Sri Matai Sahib, respected Matai ji, and always Suresh Prabhu is always available to guide us, support us, and mentor us. And of course, the Doha Bank will provide support as a financial need. And I always said, Without bank, SME will not go, and without SME, India will not go. With these words, I'm thankful to Dr. Sitaraman for inviting me, and I'm congratulate again Dr. Deepak Mittalji for taking a charge and taking a challenging assignment, and look forward more connectivity, more business, and more cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Indrakant. See, we have twofold support comes from the banking side. One is on the equity side. If there are projects which are where the know-how is with you, we can explore the possibilities of mezzanine financing. We can look at it. Qatar Development Bank has got special programs, and they are also partially guaranteeing the lending debt side, which the commercial banks are engaged in. So 87% of my lending to SME is guaranteed. So we do the joint risk management. We make sure that the good quality business we introduce and get the equity done and also debt done. We'll explore with the new arrival of the ambassador now. We'll definitely will make sure how we can synergize further. And in addition, Doha Bank itself we have our own Tadweer, a program called Tadweer, where we support SME. We give them the infrastructure. We give them the right from the office space and if they are connected with Indian operations, we can see how we can create a commercial gateway, and we introduce business as well. So with the value chain we create. So both the options are open. We'll explore this together and move forward.
Can I add one more sentence?
Yeah, please.
Both of you can think about His Excellency you. Can we request the Qatar government to set up one industrial park, especially for Indian SMEs, say called as a high-tech industrial park or a SME industrial park or a SME park for a industrial park with the Indian companies? If you can think about it, we can explore later on. We can chat next week or sometime whenever both of you are free.
Chairman, the next speaker I don't need to introduce for Qatar residents. Locals his foreign policy views are widely regarded, and with the changing dynamics, everyone is interested. Already I got 14 questions to ask. I'm not going to ask him any questions. I'm sure he will give a comprehensive story of changing dynamics in terms of politics and economics. Sureshji is back now. Sureshji has got around 11 questions. I'll come to it later. Now, with foreign policy, what sort of reorganization required in India to move forward? It looks like India is in the right direction. Let us listen to the wisdom of His Excellency Ranjan Mathai.
Thank you, Dr. Sitaraman. It's great to join you once again. We have known each other for almost 20 years, and I never cease to be amazed at how relevant you remain, how critically focused on getting people together, getting countries together, getting business together. So great to be with you. Mr. Suresh Prabhu, Honorable former Minister, one of the most respected ministers. I think, it's for the people who have joined now, it's important to know if we have an Electricity Act in our country, it is because of what Mr. Suresh Prabhu actually did in his earlier stint as minister. Great to be with Deepak. Mashallah, congratulations on your having presented credentials. This is very, very significant. I think your first time you're doing this in your career, and it's a great day. It's a really, truly great day when you represent your great country in another great country. Mr. Chandrakant Salunke, greetings to you. Great to see you again. I do recall all that we have actually worked together, and it was good to listen to you. Atul, of course, is another old friend. And I will just say one thing, people do not know how far he has spread the Indian expertise. I recall a major controversy broke out about a project in Myanmar, which was awarded to the Chinese. But little was it known that a significant part of the work was actually done by Atulji. So actually great to be with all of you. Well, I have been given this theme of the changing global dynamics. Well, obviously, the pandemic is the first big element pushing the change in global dynamics. It has brought growth to a halt. And as Sureshji told us, it has actually led to a contraction. In the UK, in fact, one commentator said earlier, when the contraction was expected to be larger, that since the Bank of England introduced its statistics, this is probably the largest contraction it has ever seen. But the important point is that this is causing countries, initially at least, to turn inwards. And it looks like the globalization model, which we assumed would continue, is now under a very serious threat. And as part of this domestic focus, there is a lot of emphasis being given to onshoring, making sure you develop your own industrial capability. But is this domestic focus working anywhere? Well, initially, at least right now, it has not been able to revive growth despite massive liquidity infusions. And in fact, this QE, this quantitative easing, has been expanded almost exponentially, but it has still not worked. Today, the world's debt is around $250 trillion, which is 3 times the world's GDP. But still, the firepower of monetary MMT, as they call it, is still being tried out. And it remains to be seen because there is at the moment no other solution in sight. Japan and the EU have both been looking at using this quantitative easing in a more regional sense rather than in a purely domestic sense. And I think this is one area we need to look at interestingly. The third most significant global dynamic is the China-US contention, which is growing. Whether it develops into a full-scale Cold War or not, what we do know is that the old era is over. At the political and military level, there are dangers, but hopefully they will remain contained. But the economic side is what I think attracting a lot of attention, because global supply chains, which had come to rely on the American demand and the Chinese supply, have suddenly been disrupted. And there are regional tensions elsewhere. We have heard about what's happening in the Gulf, Iran, and the situation between Qatar and its neighbors. But there are similar problems in the South China Seas, in other areas. And what we are expecting is that the systems in place, whether it's the United Nations, the multilateral systems, and so on, will at least work towards ensuring that these tensions, even if they are not completely removed, they ensure that we do not move forward into an open conflict. So I think this is a very significant time. And there are a lot of other players entering the global game, but whether it's in ASEAN or in the Gulf, whether it's Latin America or Africa, the difficulties people are facing is largely because of the slowdown in world growth. And the hunger for capital is immense. And this is, I think, an area where Qatar has a role to play globally. The Belt and Road Initiative of the Chinese is still in business, but the prospects look somewhat dimmer now. And whether China really has the capacity and firepower to carry this on like it planned, it remains to be seen. At the last major world crisis in 2008, the G20 had worked together. Today, the situation is not so clear, and it is incumbent on a country like India to try and refocus, I think, on getting international cooperation back onto the agenda of every major country. But India is facing twin crises of its own. As we know, the pandemic is not ending yet, and there has been a demand collapse, which hopefully is getting slowly rectified through all the measures which we heard from other speakers. But at the same time, we suddenly have a problem on our borders, a security challenge, as well as difficulties in the neighborhood. So it's not a very easy situation in which India finds itself. So are there any opportunities? Well, I think certainly there are. A vaccine is coming. A protection against this wretched pandemic is coming. Whether I'm not a medical expert, but what I understand of the vaccines which are in play, the main question now is whether you will need a single dose or you may need multiple doses. But some protection is on the way. And why is this important? Because the moment this comes, there will be a revival of confidence and there will be a revival of growth in India and in the world. Historically, it's important to remember the last major pandemic was 1918-19. Just after the First World War, the whole world was exhausted. 30 million people died. And at that time, people said, this is the end of the world. This is finished. But by the mid-1920s, the decade of the 20s came to be called the Roaring 20s. What happened? There was a revival of demand. There was a revival of growth in trade. But most importantly, it was technology driven. This was the time when petroleum entered the field, the internal combustion engine entered. So there were many drivers of global growth, which suddenly saw an explosion and a complete change, and people forgot what the pandemic was. I think it's important to remember that India will be at the center of this vaccine, not because we have produced it, but certainly our scientists have contributed to it, but because our capacities have made at least two of the major vaccine innovators to invest in the Indian production capability. My good friend Cyrus Poonawala, whom I'm sure Suresh ji knows well. We are both people with strong Pune connection, and we are very proud that they are going to play a very big role in this. But it's also a signal for the pharmaceutical industry at large. And I think India, once we move the APIs back into our own country, which we are going to do, we could be a very, very important pharmaceutical hub for the entire world. I mentioned the supply chain disruptions. There are new supply chains which are coming up to move out of the dependence on China. And the US is the obvious case. But it's also important to remember Japan, which is actually putting money on the table to induce its companies to move the supply chains to other countries. Vietnam has benefited, and I think India is well poised to take advantage of this. And we need, I think, at this stage, to talk more seriously to the Japanese about finding whether options of their old idea of reviving the TPP, a separate trading bloc without China, but in this region, taking advantage of high growth, whether this could come. How all this will develop, of course, there is one very major imponderable right now, and that is the US election. So much rides on what happens on November 3rd, I think. But the direction, I think, is broadly what I said. There would be an emphasis more on regional, new forms of cooperation and new supply chains and new domestic self-reliance becoming a mantra. Security problems, of course, India has, and I think we will overcome them. We are a confident nation, but it gives great opportunities for new alliances with like-minded countries, as well as the development of a very strong defense industry in India. And this creates opportunities for investors, for technology investors, as well as straightforward investors in international tie-ups. As I said, the focus of Indian growth will be more maritime. We have, the BRI remains a constraint for China, but developing the land links is still an issue for India. So I think our trade will still be maritime led. And this is an area where I think India, Qatar, other countries will have opportunities to work together. Now, I referred to the roaring 20s and the new technologies. The opportunities today are in the digital economy, the new sources of energy, and gas is the bridge for opening these new sources of energy. But also, as we heard, food security, health security, education, and rebuilding of the global institutions of global governance. So I think there are great opportunities for all of us to work together. I am tempted to mention that we referred to the investment opportunities from Qatar to India. I think it's no secret. I can mention at least three, which my colleagues have told me about. One was in the Baijus, the education sector. One was in electricity transmission. And the third is in fiber optics. So you can see the range of options which open up, both because of the way the world is developing and because of the way India and Qatar are developing together. So I think this is important to occasion for us. And as we know, Qatar has managed to survive and do well and prosper despite the blockade. So the whole question of logistics and transportation becomes once again a focus for both of us. And I think the world will look at this as one of the great opportunities opening up in the future. Communication links, digital links, and physical logistic links to rebuild a world after the pandemic. Thank you.
Wonderful summary, Your Excellency Ranjan Mathai. Actually, just for information, Baiju Qatar Investment Authority has put a small stake there. And again, Adani Transmission, also Qatar has invested a small token. There are growing opportunities. Now, you touched upon very many subjects. How do you see the building a green economy in India? Now, you yourself is a green proponent across the globe. I know your engagements in UK and other places. So where do you see the opportunities to build sustainable environment? Mr. Ranjan Mathai?
Well, it's not going to come very easily, but there are two areas which are immediately in focus. One is solar energy, the other is wind energy, and probably small hydro and the possibility of using hydrogen. This will require a certain amount of time, and this will require huge investments. In the time we need to go from here to achieving that kind of zero emission target, gas is the best option for lowering your emissions and producing green growth. I'm convinced about it. We have now got a gas grid which is becoming national. We are opening pipelines and making them more or less access free. So I think there are opportunities here which we need to focus on. The solar, renewable energy, hydrogen, these are not cost free. There will be elements in them where in their own supply chains, they will throw up new dependencies on critical minerals. So this is an area again where investors would have to look at new catalysts, new mineral supplies. Again, make sure you don't end up depending on one or two countries like China for rare earths or for critical minerals like cadmium, like lithium. Battery technology, I think, is another area where this could be a subject of global cooperation. If you make a breakthrough in battery technology, it will benefit the entire world because it will reduce your dependence on intermittent supply possibilities and give you a greater chance of longer term stability of your grids. You will need a backup, and I think there the nuclear energy still has a role to play. It is reasonably green if you keep a very close watch on waste management. So I think these are the kind of areas I would talk about. And I think you bankers and investors have a very, very critical role because without money, none of this is going to come.
Yeah.
Risk capital. What I mean by money is risk capital, willingness to take risks.
Yeah, it's a good commercial model. In fact, my research says if you invest or lend towards a portion of the risk-weighted capital, if you allocate for sustainability, it is going to be a commercial advantage. It's a good allocation as well for long-term returns. Now, the only one question I have out of many questions which has come to you. If Democrats are elected in the US election, what will be the significance to India? This is interesting questions. Instead of Republicans, if Democrats comes to vote, what will be the reflection for India's standing with America?
No, if I was still in service, I would say it's a hypothetical question, so I can't answer it. But since I've retired, I'll try.
Right.
Well, certainly there are, I don't think, certain fundamentals of the direction of US foreign policy will not change. But I think one big opportunity which will open up is that the Democrats are focused more on rebuilding some of the institutions of global governance. Any institution of global governance, if it has to have relevance, must have India as a major player. And I think this is increasingly accepted because of the role we have tried to play in not jumping immediately to one side, keeping strategic autonomy, and being a facilitator for better dialogues and better outcomes. So I think that is one area which we would benefit from. And certainly the Democrats have traditionally had a belief that they must work with like-minded democracies. So that I think will work to our advantage.
Thank you. A question to Suresh ji. You have been a transformer in terms of railways. Can we see a PPP model in future? Suresh ji, it's on mute.
Whether we like it or not, the future infrastructure growth in any sector will have to happen with private participation. This is an inevitable result of fiscal situations of many countries in the world, and in India, even state governments will not be able to really put their resources more into infrastructure as it is needed. As you know, our infrastructure investment will be at least upwards of $300 billion a year, the needed investment. The investment that is needed into infrastructure will be $300 billion plus year after year. And in that situation, it is not possible and not conceivable that you can do that without private sector participation. And when you talk about private sector participation, is private sector to put money into public infrastructure is always challenging because they work for profit, they work for possibilities of exiting from some of the investment, so that becomes a little challenging. So private-public partnership, which actually provides a platform in which some sort of a risk are mitigated, if not eliminated, by government, and then the private sector can come in. So this is the inevitable part of any infrastructure growth of India in future.
Okay. One last question to you. You have been discussing right from Brisbane or Melbourne in Australia on the G20, cybersecurity, food security, climate change. Where do you see India's role of in future G20 in these three areas?
See, firstly, India will be hosting for the first time ever a G20 and will be having a presidency in less than 2 years. And that time we'll be taking up so many issues like this, and India will become part of Troika in the next few months, because Saudi Arabia, Italy and India would be the Troika, and India continue to be the Troika with Indonesia, Italy and India will be participating with that. So we'll be playing a key role in the G20 discourse, first as a presidency and then also along with as a members of the Troika. So we'll be playing very key role into the G20 discussions in the next few years' time. As far as India's priorities are concerned, obviously climate change is one of the big priority for India. That can never go away till the climate change goes away. As long as climate change remains, it is going to be a priority because we are the worst sufferers of climate change. We are the victims of climate change. We have to pay huge price for both mitigation and adaptation. We have a big challenge in terms of dealing with natural calamities that are coming as a result of climate change. We have to change and climate proof our infrastructure. We have to make sure that our agriculture becomes climate proof. So it's a very, very daunting, challenging task for India. So climate change will always continue to be the priority for India in G20, outside G20. In fact, we are really concerned by the fact that the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change process, is not moving as much as it should be, and it is not moving in the right direction, despite the fact that we had a Paris Accord in which Prime Minister Modi played a very key role along with then President Hollande of France, as well as the President Obama at that particular time. So we now feel that this will continue to be a major issue. We are also prioritizing some other important issues that we will take up under our presidency, but climate change will undoubtedly be one of that issue for sure.
Well, one last question I am tempted to ask you. When you were the Commerce Minister, you fought through your way on the world share in WTO. What can India do to improve the market share in world trade?
See, improving market share obviously would mean that we have to increase our exports. And when we have to increase our export, obviously we need market access. We cannot have market access and then only you can export. If buyer is saying, I don't want to buy, then you cannot sell. So therefore, market access can come through two sources. One, through multilateral agreements like the WTO, and the other is bilateral agreements. So that's the only way we can have market access. We cannot have market access by any other third source. So now getting bilateral agreements is as important, but also not ignoring the reality that multilateral platforms are far more important, far more democratic, far more transparent, far more participatory. And therefore, India has been pushing both at the same time. As Commerce Industry Minister, as I was saying in my introductory remarks, I chaired 2 mini ministries. Soon after the collapse of ministerial talks in Buenos Aires in 2017, December, I announced there itself in Buenos Aires when I saw the collapse of it, because I had gone there few weeks after becoming a Commerce Industry Minister, and I could not believe my eyes that it is collapsing in front of my own eyes, like a building collapsing. So I said, how can we allow that to happen? So I organized to, I'm in touch with most of the countries even today, because even in G20, we are focusing on WTO and its revitalization. So I think it is a big priority for India. Market access can come to increase the market share. And increasing market share is very important for India to achieve a $5 trillion mark, which again I had prepared a roadmap for $5 trillion map. The 50% of $5 trillion, we must have a international trade to GDP ratio to ensure that we realize our potential. And in that, substantial part will come from exports. So therefore, it's a very, very important priority.
Thank you. This question is for me. We are not shown the glimpses of Qatar Stadium. We heard about it, and also show us on the Qatar infrastructure. Do you have the clips to show quickly? So there are a few questions on Qatar India relationship. They want me to. Can you just move on to the Qatar Stadium if you have the clips? This has come from Chennai. The question has come from Chennai. Show us the. Before I'm going to call the word of thanks in another 5 minutes. Before that, I'll show some glimpse. Can you go back to the earlier one? Yeah, Qatar Economy. Can you play for a minute? Yeah.
Located on the region's busiest shipping route, Qatar is perfectly positioned for international trade, with direct air and sea connections to Asia, Africa, and Europe. Qatar is becoming a leading destination for next-generation business models. Its thriving, knowledge-based economy has helped secure its place among the most competitive business environments in the world, an ideal destination for foreign investment. The past 4 decades have seen a 9-fold increase in Qatar's population to 2.7 million. The current political blockade by neighboring countries has only served to strengthen the nation's self-sufficiency, and strategic investment continues to accelerate. Qatar has already spent $33 billion on infrastructure projects, with new contracts to be awarded over the next 3 years, not least with the...
It's not moving. It's okay. It's okay. It's
located on the region's busiest shipping.
Right. That's the infrastructure. Let me move on straight to the stadium.
But as I mentioned,
this is this is one. These are engineering marvels.
Qatar's
go back. Yeah. Great. So these are world-class engineering marvels set to, state of the art. It's going to be fun. Qatar has spent $12 billion in terms of modernizing the complete infrastructure. Metros have been connected. It's a beauty to watch. Most of them are close to conclusion. By March, we'll have a test drive to showcase some of the events here. So it's all of you. I welcome all of you from across the globe to join the 2022 showcase of events, and we look forward. Meanwhile, I'll just show you some glimpses where Qatar-India relationship it started. Let me start with Ranjan Mathai. His Amir was there in 2005 in Delhi, New Delhi, and that was where many of the agreements have been signed. It's extraordinary. Petronet was started in 2004 in Gujarat and Kunj, and subsequently the relationship blossomed from strength to strength. Now let me move on straight to Qatar bilateral relationship. The photos straight. Yeah. In terms of bilateral pictures, I think it's what's showing. Yeah. This was 2012. Then this is 2015 March. And again, the Prime Minister was here in 2016. This is 2016 June, where we had 7 agreements signed. And we had the business community we met. The Prime Minister of, then Prime Minister of Qatar, Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser, we were all together in December 2016. Then after the blockade, the foreign minister visited and met the Prime Minister. That was in August 2017. The Indian Foreign Minister Sushma was here in 2018. And subsequently, we had this Global Aviation Summit. And Mr. B.K. Singh was here. This was last year in New York when His Highness Emir met the Prime Minister of India in the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. It's a growing partnership. We have a bilateral trade of around 11 to 12 billion, and growing investments we have to explore further. And banking is growing. There are 2 banks from Qatar operating in India now. We will further strengthen. We are here to further synergize the relationship. Let me call upon my country manager, chief country manager, Mr. Manish Mathur, to say the word of thanks. I think it's just on time. Manish Mathur, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, sir.
Yeah,
I'm
please
there.
thank our dignitaries for their kind acceptance and wonderful showcase of their thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think thanks to all the panelists. It was a really invigorating discussion. I think given the pandemic, I think it was a great boost to look at, what are all the opportunities for India and Qatar to work together and, build a relationship further and become more relevant in the global economy. It was great to hear your valuable insights. And I'm sure the audience found it useful, and we would also like to thank the audience for their time and for logging into the webinar and raising some very relevant questions which for our panelists to answer. So thanks again for your time, and we would just like everybody to stay safe and healthy, and I look forward to working together as we go along. In building this relationship between 2 very, important countries, going forward in the global economy. So thanks everybody for joining in.
Thank you all. Thank you, Suresh Ji. Thank you, His Excellency Ranjan Mathai.
Thank you.
His Excellency.
Thank you, Dr. Sitaraman, for inviting us. Thank you very much.
My special thanks to Atul as well.
To your more cooperation, more support.
Sure. We are here to facilitate.
And we will continue because His Excellency Dr. Deepak Mittal ji, let us have, because Dr. Sitaraman is having, I don't know which energy, but you should utilize his energy and knowledge and particularly his passion. Bringing people together is most important. I suggest let us continue our ball rolling. and also we plan some more activity on the SME point. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you.
Namaskar. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Great to re-engage with Qatar.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.